We're at the same position in public opinion in Scotland today as we were back in 2014. There is a lack of debate and ideas and ambition for other aspects of public policy in Scotland. Our governance is in a mess. We've got far too much secrecy and cover up, not enough transparency. We've got an economy is struggling to recover from the pandemic. We've got education and health services that are declining rather than improving. And getting those issues onto the agenda rather than just claiming they should be the agenda is the big challenge for the Labour Party in Scotland.
What will this mean for the future of British politics? And is Sturgeon's resignation, as the Times reports this morning, a huge boost to unionism? Jack McConnell was Labour's first minister between 2001 and 2007. He joins us now. Good morning to Jack.
Good morning.
It's said, of course, it's a cliche, but true nonetheless, all political careers end in failure. Are you surprised this one ended the way it did?
I think we're all a bit surprised by the speed with which it's happened. But I think I detected yesterday in Nicola's, I think, very dignified speech that she realises that despite everything that's happened, all the chaos in British politics in particular over the last 7 years, that the dials haven't really moved since 2014, that Scottish public opinion and Scottish political debate is still pretty much where it was, despite everything, despite Brexit, despite Boris Johnson, despite Jeremy Corbyn, all these massive factors that have helped her be so successful electorally, that Scottish public opinion and Scottish political debate are really still where they were, and that somebody else, for her movement, somebody else needs to have a go.
And what does that mean for the movement, do you think? Because it's easy to say, and maybe, as Luke was saying, it's complacent to say if you're a unionist that, oh, she was a big beast, she replaced a big beast in the form of Alex Salmond, and now they're both gone. It doesn't feel like there's any great figure waiting in the wings. Therefore, it is absolutely definitive that the bid for independence will falter. Is that definitely true, do you think?
Well, I think people outside Scotland sometimes don't really understand that the Scottish National Party is not this. It's not like a normal political party. It is a movement with a very clear primary objective. That's why you never really see, for example, backbenchers in the SNP either at Westminster or at Holyrood criticise the state of public services in Scotland or express worries about the state of the Scottish economy or whatever, because ultimately they have to be united in search of that ultimate goal. I think when they pick a new leader, it's not necessarily going to be on the basis that somebody is best to govern Scotland or to set out new ambitions for the party in a wide range of areas. The choice will be based on who do they feel has the best strategy to take them further towards independence. So I think the candidate, whoever that candidate is, who looks like they have a strategy for achieving independence, will be the one who will be the front runner. And it will be interesting to see in the coming days and weeks if anybody has that strategy, because of Nicola's dominance in the Scottish National Party, we've not really heard those other voices over the last few years. And it was interesting yesterday to hear various people, former leaders, members of Parliament, coming out with ideas for what that strategy might be. Some of which were completely bonkers, but that is about to happen, I think. And I don't think any of us can really predict what might come out of that, because this is a debate that hasn't really happened in the SNP, probably for the best part of 20 years, ever since Alex and Nicola became the leadership team. The party has been incredibly united and very one-dimensional in the strategy that it has pursued.
Will they be able to run the argument this? Because the thing she wanted to run, Nicola Sturgeon, she wanted to run the argument that I can't get a referendum, therefore the next election will become a proxy referendum. And that seemed to falter around the edges when she introduced other policies that were causing concern, not least the gender recognition stuff. But can her successor really plausibly claim that the next election is a run out of the referendum simply? Or is that argument weakened a bit by Sturgeon leaving?
Well, it was interesting yesterday to hear the MP for the Western Isles, who I think it was actually might even have been on Times Radio yesterday morning, who I think very cleverly deflected this back to Holyrood. The SNP MPs are very worried about this strategy because they think that the next debate and the next general election in the UK will be, maybe for the first time in a generation, a proper contest between the Labour Party and the Conservative Party for who governs Britain and what kind of UK do we want to have, and that their MPs will lose out if the SNP is seen to trivialise that and try and make it into some de facto referendum. And yesterday, one of their MPs was suggesting that, in fact, what should happen is that all of the Holyrood MSPs should resign and create an election at Holyrood, so that an election at Holyrood before next Christmas could be that de facto referendum. I think both groups, the MSPs and the MPs, both want the other group to take the risk because they don't want to lose their seats and their salaries. So I'm not sure this strategy is going anywhere. I think if somebody, perhaps one of the younger ministers, was to set out a strategy that could galvanise the base to create an independence movement that has a bit of fire in its belly, then that may well be the choice that they make. I'm not sure that's going to succeed in the short term, but they will believe that it can.
To talk about the general election, do you think that this is the best gift Keir Starmer could have received? Is a Westminster win for Labour now more likely because Sturgeon is out the door?
Well, I'm not absolutely sure about that. I hear a lot of, as ever, complacency from, how do I best put this? But politicians whose focus is in Westminster rather than living the reality of life in Scotland. And what this might do is refocus the debate back on independence, because everybody's going to be excited about a new SNP leader and a new First Minister. So I think what we don't need here, particularly inside the Labour Party, is any of the complacency that was seen after the 2014 referendum. And I think Anna Sawar, actually, the Scottish Labour Party leader, struck the right chord yesterday more than probably any other current politician. He was gracious about Nicola and her public service to Scotland. He was stressing the importance of that position of First Minister to Scotland, and he was talking about the current issues that people in Scotland want to address. And the biggest problem that we have in Scotland today is that for the best part of a decade now, despite everything that's happened in British politics, all the chaos and some of the worst governments in British political history, the dial in Scotland has hardly moved. We're at the same position in public opinion in Scotland today as we were back in 2014. There is a lack of debate and ideas and ambition for other aspects of public policy in Scotland. Our governance is in a mess. We've got far too much secrecy and cover up, not enough transparency. We've got an economy is struggling to recover from the pandemic. We've got education and health services that are declining rather than improving. And getting those issues onto the agenda, rather than just claiming they should be the agenda, is the big challenge for the Labour Party in Scotland and in the UK. And I hope that that opportunity will now exist, but we cannot be complacent, because as we see this morning, the media is going to be very excited about who this next First Minister is going to be. And so they should be excited, because the First Minister of Scotland is an incredibly important position. And, I think one of the things that Nicola has done is ensure that position has the status and importance inside the UK that it should always have had.
Just finally, Jack, she talks about the sort of the tone of the debate. Is it harder to be a leader now than it was when you were there? Do you think it's a crueler, more brutal place, politics? And actually, it's not surprising that people leave in their 50s. People like Sturgeon want to walk away, because it's a pretty miserable place to be these days.
Well, I think it's incredible that she's survived as a minister for 16 years. I mean, that is a phenomenal achievement in anybody's eyes. To survive that physically and mentally, as well as continuing to have a degree of public support, is really quite an achievement. I think she will feel frustrated that after all that time, she doesn't have the sort of change either in terms of Scottish independence or in terms of the social issues. I do know that she does underneath that care about. She hasn't achieved the sort of change that I think she would have wanted in her political career, and that will frustrate her, I'm sure. But I'm not sure that leading the SNP when you have some of the worst UK governments and some of the worst UK opposition in the Corbyn years and before it than that the UK's ever seen. Leading the SNP in that environment is sometimes is a pretty easy job, I have to say. When I look back on my time when I was First Minister and my party was governing the UK at the same time, I didn't have anything to bat against.
Yeah.
And Nicola's had some pretty easy targets to bat against over the last 7 years. So and she's enjoyed good popularity as a result of that. And I wish her well.
So the sympathy is limited in that respect. Jack, great to speak to you. Thank you for joining us.
Cheers.
That's Jack McConnell, there, Labour's First Minister between 2001 and 2007. Interesting point there, actually, that he actually thought she had. I mean, because she had an easy COVID, didn't she? It felt like me. Because if you look at